Hobbit Day! Or so I'd like to say, but alas, I'm filming this on September 22nd, so it's unlikely I'll post today. But that's okay. We can celebrate anyway. And what better way than to make a token-inspired cosplay? So, picture this. There's just a week before our convention, and I realized that I don't have anything to wear. So I set myself the challenge of making Hera's Warrior Bride dress. Time is short, but sometimes the best adventures are. First, I need to know exactly what I'm getting myself into, and let me tell you, it's not easy to find good pictures of this dress. Which is weird since it's one that she wears in the trailer. Still, I gathered together what I could. It looks like she's wearing two dresses layered together, a gray gown beneath and a white open front gown above, with her usual riding pants underneath. Most of the decorative details are on the gray dress, like the white fur trim and what appears to be a white eagle on the front. At first, I thought I'd aim for historical accuracy, even did the research and everything. But then, at the last moment, right before I started working, I found a picture of the back of the dress. No historical gown would ever have such a low V-neck, and the fact that the fur trim continues along the edge proves she didn't just cut it to make it fit. And so I set aside my aspirations for historical accuracy and embraced going for the accuracy of the film. My focus will be the dress, but if I have time, I want to try the armor too. It'll be my first time. There's a vambrace for her sword arm and a pair of leg guards, which I will be referring to as greaves because I think that's what they're called, but I'm not sure. I started with the gloves, not exactly the most important piece, but they need to be hand sewn and I want to get them prepped early to work on them away from the convenience of electric sewing machines. I hand drafted them with the help of a tutorial, which is linked below along with any other references I make. Then, while I was already in a pattern making mood, I figured I'd pattern the bodice too. I used my usual bodice block, the one I drafted ages ago, also in the description, but it's always been too short for me, especially in the back. So I went ahead and lengthened it, 3.5 inches at the back and 3 inches at the front, making sure the side matches both seam lengths. This will be my base pattern for both the white and the gray gowns, so I added the deep V-neck in the back. The front I adjusted into a straight line that I can cut on the fold, which meant the dart had to get bigger. For the gray dress, I gave the front a regular V-neck. The white one I will alter later. I had the pattern anyway, I might as well pull out the fabric. A silver stretch taffeta. I picked up from Fabric Wholesale Direct. It wasn't as flowy as I had hoped, the woes of ordering online, but it's not horrible for an old dress to be a bit stiff. To cut it out, since my self-drafted patterns generally don't include seam allowance, I relied on my favorite trick, a little magnet on my scissors keeping a steady 3/8 inch guide. It works beautifully, though I'll admit it doesn't love curves. Remember those gloves I was talking about? I swear I'm still working on them, but they have a big problem. None of my stash fabrics are the right color, so into my dye pot it goes. I had hoped the green faux suede fabric would darken into brown with this sandy dye, but it refused to take the color at all. Probably because it's actually made for upholstery and has been treated not to stain. I didn't think about that though. So off to Michael's I went to pick up a true brown to dye a white fabric from my stash. And while the dye was cooking away, I went ahead and sewed the bodice together. We aren't wasting any time here. And when the pot was done, I poured it out to see what colors I had conjured. away as well as I had hoped. So it's possible that the fabric that I'm using is not actually synthetic. I know there's a flame test that you can do to make sure that it's synthetic, but I can't find any of my flamethrowers. So I just threw it in and hoped it would work, especially because it's hard to find right now non-synthetic dye, because most fabric that you can find in person is synthetic, so they have dyes for the synthetics. Anyway, so it's not the color that I wanted, but it's still brown. It's like a light tannish color, so it's still a color that would be in that time period. So I'm not angry at it. It'll work. I will probably eventually replace it, but for now it's fine. I can use it. I have brown hands though. It's harder to see right now. It is kind of going away a little bit, but my hands look so dirty at the moment. I washed them a couple of times and it's not going away. So that's a thing. So I think the next thing I need to do is probably figure out the skirt situation or the sleeve situation for the gray dress. I think that'll be my best bet, but I need to go and look at my daily progress thing to see what's actually needed, because I have a week to finish and I should have started this ages ago, but I didn't. So I'm gonna go look at my actual schedule to see what is required to be done today.
I'm honestly too lazy to make an actual skirt pattern, but we'll blame the lack of preparation on time constraints. I used the bodice to mark the top, then measured down to about my ankles. The skirts don't have to look amazing. I plan to destroy them later anyway. So I just sewed the long seams, left a little opening at the back for a lacing closure, and attached it to the bodice. Even though the gray dress sleeves would be hidden under the white gown, this dress would look so weird without sleeves. Luckily, I don't have to be super precise with this, so I can draft my own for the gray sleeves. And while I'm at it, I'll make my sleeves for the white dress by copying a pre-made pattern, because I'm not doing anything fancy at this point. True fit doesn't matter, as long as it isn't too small, because as I sew the sleeves in, I gather it at the top to make a little shoulder puff. The hope is that it will help the white sleeves later keep their volume. The bottom of the sleeves I went ahead and hemmed. This will be the only hem in the whole project. For the neckline, I used pre-made fur trim from Michaels. I stitched it on by machine from the inside, then flipped it over and hand sewed it down so no stitches would show. Oh, it looks better on camera than it does in person. I feel like the sleeves are a little frumpy. I wish they were shorter. I meant for them to be shorter, but they didn't wind up being shorter. The other problem, which is a problem I always have, is that the shoulders, because of the low cut back, it does not want to stay on my shoulders. And that might also be because I haven't done enough trimming of like the seam allowance of the arms. But yeah, it feels like it's gonna fall off my shoulders at any point. Hopefully, when I get the white piece on and tie the white piece on, it will look better. But this is the gray dress all put together. The only thing it doesn't have is a hem, but I figured no point in putting a hem because I'm going to be cutting it up and fraying it as much as possible. And then also it's missing a little decal at the front, but that's going to be a whole other process. So I wanted to make the white dress first and then do the decal. But I think it looks pretty good. I think it fits pretty well, which I was a little concerned about. And I actually did wind up closing up that back seam. You know, I left a little bit open so that I could tie it closed, but it actually wound up, because of the low neck in the back, I don't really have to worry about it not going over my head. I can't pull it up over my hips because it's too small to go over my hips, but it will go over my head. Looking at it now, I do think that the fur trim is a little small. I think on the anime it looks a little bigger than this, but I'm not willing to remove the fur trim to replace it because I do have white fur fabric, but I would have to make trim and then attach it, and I already did all the work of attaching it here, so I don't really want to do that. So next steps is the white dress, at least the base of it. Hopefully I can finish sewing the white dress today. It is pretty late in the day, but I have to go on an errand, so I might be staying up late today to finish the white dress. Could also be that the dress wasn't fitting right because I'm still wearing a shirt underneath. Oh, by the way, I found my flamethrower, so I checked the fabric that I was trying to dye, and it is in fact polyester fabric. However, the dye that I got was all-purpose dye, which, contrary to its title, does not work for polyester fabric. So usually I have polyester dye, but when I went to Michael's, I just grabbed a random dye off the shelf that was brown and was like, oh yeah, this is the one I need, and forgot to check and make sure that it was actually polyester dye. So we're gonna try to dye it again, but this time with polyester dye, and it's a cocoa brown, so we'll see if it actually takes. I swear I'm not trying to jump all over the place. This is just how my mind works. But there's still the white dress. I made its bodice pattern a deep V-neck in the front, transferring the dart into the side and front to limit seams, though I forgot to film that. For the back and side, I combined the pieces to keep the seams minimal, knowing the belt would help with shaping anyway. For the white dress, I'm hoping to have as little seams as possible, so I didn't want to waste seam either. I laid out the bodice pieces, measured down to about mid-thigh, and cut the bodice and skirt as one piece, still using that trusty magnet for the seam allowance. And if you ask me what fabric I'm using, I have no idea. Just some white, probably polyester material I had left from a failed project that I tried. While I had the cats shut out of the room, I took the chance to also iron the gray dress, especially at the waistline, which is a little bulky. Now, do as I say, not as I do. I was ironing while holding the fabric in my hands, and though I was careful, I nearly burned myself more than once, so you probably shouldn't do that. Then it was back to sewing the white dress. Now don't judge me for my space. It's cut and crunch. I don't have time for tidying. The sleeves came next. I made long tubes to fit down to my wrists and gathered the puff sleeves into them. Together they made the full sleeve, which I then added to the bodice by gathering it down to fit the armhole. Okay, so I was mistaken, I think, about the amount of hemming in this project, because I do need to finish the neckline. Is this really considered a hem though? Or is a hem just what's at the bottom of the project? What would this be called then? To keep it closed, I added a hook and eye at the waist, which will be hidden by the belt. Alright, so I definitely am going to have an issue with the sleeves falling off. That's official. I'm probably gonna have to like pin them in or something of that nature, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So other than that, I'm really liking the white fur is showing a little bit better now that I have the white dress pinned in the front with its hook and eye. I need to put the belt in, and then of course you've probably noticed that the gray dress is actually full in the front instead of open like it is in the pictures, but I think that there's no actual weathering on the front slit of the gray dress. So I think that she cut the front slit of the gray dress right before wearing it to battle. So that's probably going to be the last thing that I do, in case you're wondering why the gray dress is still fully intact. Yeah, you can see my white dress is already coming off. I don't know exactly how I'm going to make it stay up, because I can tell you right now that neither dress is going to stay up, the gray dress nor the white dress. So I can pin the white dress to the gray dress and hope that the gray dress stays up, but we'll see how exactly that'll work. I really hate this white fur. I will replace it if I have time, but there's other things that need to happen first. So I think that when I go to do the emblem in the front here, I will probably first replace the fur. I might even just put the other fur on top of this fur so I don't have to remove it, because that sounds like a pain in the butt. A few things I still need to do for this project other than the front emblem piece is I need to make some gloves, which the fabric I dyed finally looks okay. It's not as dark as I had wanted, but it is dark enough that I think it will go well with the white dress. I think that the gray of that dress is also darker than what I got, so I think a lighter glove will be okay. I already have boots that I can wear, especially since she wears leg guards, so I really only need the bottom of the boot. So I have something that'll work for that. So I need the leg guards, I need a vambrace because she only wears one when she's fighting. I think the other one probably was removed because she had the shield. And then I also need the sword is a big one that I really need. Oh, and pants, I need pants. I have a purple pair of leggings that I made to wear with my Arwen's riding coat that I can wear, so that's kind of may or may not make that, depending on if I absolutely have to or not. Things that I can add later if I have time. The veil type fabric that comes off of the shoulder and attaches to her fingers via a ring. That fabric was something that she was initially attached to the dress, but at some point they came off or was no longer animated, so at some point she no longer has that sheer fabric, so that sheer fabric is optional. The other thing is of course the shield. I highly doubt I'm gonna have enough time to do the shield. I don't even know how to do a shield. I'm going to be pushing myself just to do a sword, so a shield is a little crazy. By this time, the dyed fabric was ready for the gloves. You thought I forgot about them, didn't you? But it's been a couple of days now and I'm late, so ironing is not happening. Okay, maybe I'm making excuses not to iron. I just hate doing it so much. Luckily, the pattern doesn't need seam allowance, just stitching close to the edge, so there won't be too much space to get wonky. Sewed them entirely at work, so there's no footage. But I do have them right here, and you can see the stitching right there. Maybe, I don't know. And then I realized that there is actually gray ribbon on the front of the white dress. I hadn't noticed it before, so I had to go back to Michael's and get some tiny gray ribbon to sew to the front of the white dress, which did mean that I had to redo the hook and eyes. Now for the front emblem. I traced the center front bodice pattern, sketched the eagle's outline from references, there's quite a few different versions, and cut it out. To give it depth, I used the same white faux suede as the gloves, just not dyed. I skipped seam allowance, hoping I could melt the edges, but they burnt instead. That's fine, it's all fine, a little fraying will make it look weathered, which is fitting. The fur trim still bothers me though. It looks too neat, too artificial. No time to replace it, so instead I roughened it up with some hair cutting scissors, cutting into it until it felt a little more natural. To weather the skirts, I cut into them with scissors off camera. I'd wanted to use sandpaper, but what little I had wore out before I made much progress. I'll need to get a sanding block if I want to do this again. With only days left before DragonCon, I turned at last to the armor. Luckily, I already had some bracer and greave patterns, so I used those as a base. Hera's greaves, though, were very different from my patterns, so I sketched them from her reference image, cutting one side and folding for symmetry. I added a small notch at the bottom, meant to sit over the foot, but I'm not really sure it's going to work. I cut the armor from 4mm foam. For the vambrace, I added details from thinner foam. I tried the same with the greaves, but using rubber cement was a mistake. Nothing held. I switched to hot glue for attaching the foot guard, and while it wasn't perfect, it held well enough.
I poked holes along the edges to lace them up. These only lasted for most of the day. I also attempted a sword carved from film to glue around a wooden dowel, but I used rubber cement again, cut too deep, and then my Dremel broke. So ends the attempt of the sword. The night before the convention, I painted the armor. Plasti dip first, then a couple of coats of green spray paint. Unfortunately, it was the kind of paint that resists layering, so the detail work afterward was miserable. Not to mention my brushes were stiff, I kept losing them, and the paint refused to behave. In the end, the armor was passable, though not what I had hoped. One leg guard refused to stay straight, and without the belt or sword, it felt incomplete. But the dresses, especially the gray one, made me proud. The shoulders slipped more than I liked, but the fit of the bodice was the best I've managed yet. I think at long last, I've finally cracked my bodice plug. Woo! Okay. So there you have it, my very own warrior bride dress to honor the Hobbit day, or technically Hobbit month, since I'm not going to post this on the day that I wanted. I hope you enjoyed coming on this little adventure with me. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then leave them down below. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye! Sir, you're getting in the way of the camera. You're getting in the way of the camera.